Hello, in this video, I'll be going over how Denis Villeneuve, a renowned director, rescued the world of Dune movie adaptations.
Frank Herbert, the author of the Dune books, wrote his first ever Dune book and published it in 1965. Herbert received more positive feedback than expected. An astonishing science fiction phenomenon, The Washington Post. Powerful, convincing, and most ingenious, Robert A. Heinlein. Herbert's creation of this universe, with its intricate development and analysis of ecology, religion, politics, and philosophy, remains one of the supreme and seminal achievements in science fiction, the Louisville Times. This feedback not only shows how well written the book is, they show how Dune gives an immaculate description of science fiction politics, ecological philosophy, and how religion, if in the wrong hands, can manage to maintain power negatively. These books went on to be an inspiration for several other franchises yet to emerge at the time, and for ones that are now some of the biggest names in literature. Dune inspired Star Wars, Game of Thrones, and Warhammer 40,000. While all this seemed like a goldmine for film creators at first sight, the complexity of the storyline proved it to be a difficult task to make movie adaptations. The first significant attempt at the movie adaptation was by Alejandro Jodorowsky. Perhaps the most legendary unmade Dune project was spearheaded by surrealist director Alejandro Jodorowsky. He spent years attempting a massive, wildly ambitious 10-hour epic featuring art by H.R. Giger and Jean Mobius-Giraud, music by Pink Floyd, and starring Salvador Dali and Orson Welles. The project eventually collapsed due to its ballooning budget and scale. Our next candidate was Ridley Scott. After Jodorowsky's failure, producer Dino De Laurentiis acquired the rights and hired Ridley Scott, director of Alien and Blade Runner, to direct. Scott worked on the script for several months, but ultimately left the project in 1979 due to the massive scale of the pre-production. And the most famous failure was that of David Lynch. He spent years bringing the film to life, but it was a notoriously troubled production. The studio drastically shortened his original cut, and while the 1984 Dune is recognized for its unique visual aesthetic, it was a critical and box office failure, and Lynch essentially disowned it. Dune was labeled a curse for its movie adaptations, as every attempt to adapt it flopped. Enter Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve was no stranger to the world of sci-fi. Director of Blade Runner 2049, Villeneuve described his dream to direct and create a successful movie adaptation of Dune. When Villeneuve got the rights to Dune in 2017, he didn't immediately get to work. Rather, he took his time, refining and studying how a unique story should be displayed without complexity, whilst maintaining cinematography, storytelling, and appealing visual effects. When we see David Lynch's Dune, which is widely recognized as the representative for previous Dune movie adaptation attempts, we see a massive difference in dialogue and how David Lynch took it as normal conversations. We see that Villeneuve did not do that, rather made it differ from Lynch's boring and simple dialogue that showed no meaning, and rather showed a vibe of talking to your friend normally, even when it was an exchange between two completely different strangers. A great example of this is the scene where Paul Atreides puts his hand in the agony box. First, let's analyze the scene by Lynch.
I hold at your neck the Gom Jabbar. This one kills only animals.
Are you suggesting a duke's son is an animal?
Let us say, I suggest you may be human. Your awareness may be powerful enough to control your instincts. Your instinct will be to remove your hand from the box. If you do so, you die.
In this scene, Paul exchanges dialogue with the Reverend Mother. The Reverend Mother, after presenting the Gom Jabbar onto Paul's neck, indirectly refers to Paul as an animal. She goes on a somewhat long and not as descriptive line that describes how an animal would choose a small sacrifice for the exchange of its own life, and indirectly asks Paul what his instinct would suggest he do. The description of this whole dialogue gives it a boring and non-poetic feel that you would expect from Dune. Basically,
A universe like Dune that combines modernism and political power, whilst mixing it with a medieval manner of socializing, deserves a short, somewhat slick dialogue that gives you a poetic feel and also a modern feel at the same time.
This is what Villeneuve does. He explains his concept from the Reverend Mother in one line as if it were a quote, which it is.
Why are you doing this?
An animal caught in a trap will gnaw off its own leg to escape. What will you do?
See the difference? Villeneuve gives a sense of the Reverend Mother not only asking Paul, but also telling him, and indirectly calling him an animal, just like in the book and in Lynch's dialogue.
Even if we look at both scenes visually, Villeneuve portrays each character not only as you would expect them to look, but also with a bit of logic. When the Reverend Mother is shown by Villeneuve, she has a lattice cloth over her face, which provides context for the Bene Gesserit and how they are women of religion. She looks like somewhat of a nun, which is exactly what you would expect a religious and pious woman in her own sense to look like. Also, considering a nun is an extremely religious woman in Christianity, Lynch's presentation of the Reverend Mother looks non-serious and looks more like a woman engaging in or leading satanic rituals rather than being a positively religious woman. Let's take a look at Paul in these scenes. In Villeneuve's presentation, Paul is everything you would expect. A 15-year-old, heir of the Duke of an entire empire. He is shown in his formal, yet comfortable clothing, and also gives a sense of pure simplicity, as a child of 15 years would be, whoever his father is. Meanwhile, Lynch's Paul is shown as if he is in charge of training the Empire's army or as a general. He is covered in badges and awards as if he took part in a war.
Even though we see clearly that Denis Villeneuve's Dune is better, we cannot ever completely blame Lynch or any other director for their failures, as the world of Dune is complex and hard to tell, and especially for Lynch, his production team was so bad that they put him in roadblocks. Several challenges were faced. In the end, Lynch hated the outcome so much that he preferred his name not to be used on the film.
Then comes cinematography. Denis Villeneuve paired up with legendary cinematographer Greg Fraser. Fraser and Villeneuve together helped the Dune movies get that visually aesthetic feel and used it for peak storytelling, for Dune Part 2. The scene where the Harkonnen soldiers ambush Arrakis, we see an overwhelming mix of visceral dread, sensory overload, and sheer cinematic awe. Audiences described the experience as immersive and bone-rattling, thanks to the sheer scale of the action and the intense focus on the brutal reality of the desert. They had to go to Abu Dhabi and Jordan to film the scenes for authenticity and a pure Arrakis vibe. After 56 years, the world of Dune had finally been shown on the big screen without any mistakes, with the creative mind of Denis Villeneuve. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and leave your suggestions in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.